What's the best sleeping position for hypermobility? And this especially is for you if you've already tried a pillow between the knees or hugging a squishmallow and it does not seem to cut it.
There's strength in finding answers.
And I would know because I used to be disabled with EDS pain as well as with POTS, and I now live with hypermobility pain in remission. Imperfectly, of course. I'm also a certified corrective exercise specialist with a team of our PT, OT, ergonomist, doctor, and registered dietitian, and we now have worked with over 10,000 of you, and we've seen time and time again what works and what doesn't work. So I'm bringing all of that data that we've collected and I'm sharing it with you here on YouTube to make it accessible because you deserve accessibility. So I'm going to be sharing what my ergonomist on staff, who's also an occupational therapist, and I have come up with what we see as usually the most optimal sleep positions. But I'll also say everybody's different and there's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all. So as we talk about this, it's important to note your body might be different than Joe Schmo's body, and listening to your body is the best thing that you can do when it comes to positioning. Also, obvious statement, make sure to ask your medical team before making any changes significant to your sleeping position. In our eyes, there are two basic sleep positions for hypermobility. The first is side sleeping. The second is back sleeping. You might say, but Tracy, I sleep on my stomach. I know. You should not. It's not good for you. So typically we see side sleeping and back sleeping as the two most optimal options. Some people prefer side sleeping and some people get injured because of laxity in the shoulder and the rib, and I'll talk about that here in a little bit. I'll also show you what these two positions look like. I'll also give you a list of my favorite pillow recommendations. Let's get started. So let's start first with mattress talk. I think there's no real pattern for mattresses that work for us because I hear so many different things across the board every day. I have not, as an autistic person myself, found the pattern for what works best for mattresses for hypermobile people. So what I would say is instead seeking out mattresses that maybe are adjustable, like a Sleep Number mattress, or testing mattresses that, the Purple mattress, say people have had good experiences with that. Some people had terrible experiences like myself, but you can make sure that the mattress that you choose has a return policy of at least 90 days. So with that return policy, you are taking your sweet time to test out a mattress. You're able to ask them to come pick it up when you need to return it. And that is really, as far as mattress selection goes, the most important thing that I think we can do as hypermobile people. As far as if you're in the store, I like to lay on a mattress for at least 10 to 15 minutes before making a selection. Because at first it can feel comfortable and then after some time it does not feel comfortable anymore. So it's a good way for us to be able to determine if over a little bit of time it still maintains that comfort level. So I wish that I had better selection tips than that. I wish I had one brand that worked for every hypermobile person that was completely perfect, but unfortunately I don't find it to be that simple. Now to easier solutions that I do see a lot more patterns across the board with. Let's talk side sleeping. For side sleeping, I tend to see a cervical pillow do pretty well. Specifically a cervical pillow that you can adjust the height of however you need to. So I personally use a cervical pillow off of Amazon. I'll put the link here below that acts as a puzzle where you put those pieces together. And you can remove layer by layer if you need to. So if you're a back sleeper, you can actually remove the top two layers and just have the bottom layer, so it's a much more thin pillow to sleep on. This pillow has a little bit of a bump in it to fill in the space of the neck so that when you're sleeping, your head is on top of your shoulders. While you're laying on your side, it's completely neutral. And there is support in here for the curve. And I find that to be really important, especially for me with craniocervical instability. It can be important to have support in for that curve. And again, I like the adjustable nature of it as well, and it's not super cushy. It's pretty hard, even though it is foam, and I like that personally, but it's up to your personal opinion as well. As far as your limbs go, so your arms and your legs, we want to make sure that your knees and your feet, your toes, your heels are hip width apart. So instead of thinking of this as like, oh, I need to keep my legs straight or keep, the bent, it's okay to have them bent at a 90-degree angle, whatever you need, but we want the width of them, the width of your knees, the width of your ankles, the width of your toes to be identical as far as possible to the width of your hips. And what we typically see is even if you have a pillow in between your knees, the toes still come together and that still puts pressure onto the hips. So we're trying to make everything neutral in alignment with your hips. As far as the arms go, we're doing the same thing. So we're trying to keep the elbows and the wrists and the hands so no joint is touching, right? Everything at the same width as the shoulder. And so I do that with a U-shaped pregnancy pillow. And I'll also put the link here below in the description. U-shaped pregnancy pillow that I get off of Amazon because that's unfortunately where I get a lot of my things because I am neurodivergent and need simplicity at all costs. I use the U-shaped pregnancy pillow and it starts here, the opening starts here at the clavicle and it wraps all the way around to my feet and then all the way around behind my pelvis. So it supports my pelvis and supports my back. You might say I move around a lot at night, and a lot of hypermobile people do. So, what I say is the position that we start in or that we return to once we wake up and notice that we moved around is what matters. We don't really focus on what we can't control, we focus more on what we can control. And the more that we do a position, the more it becomes muscle memory, and it can become more of the easy position to go to for the body even while we're not conscious and while we sleep. Imperfectly. Some people never, some people yes. It's just through repetition it can become more natural for the body.
And if you get shoulder pain while you sleep on your side, you can try placing a thin pillow underneath your armpit that goes from your armpit to your hip and see if that helps to eliminate some of the pressure on your shoulder.
And that's the position that I prefer for side sleeping. I do find it to be very helpful for many hypermobile people. And now we can move on to back sleeping. So back sleeping is a little bit different. We want a thinner pillow typically for you to lay on. I again do still like that same cervical pillow with only one of the layers so that there's still that bump to fill in the curve of the neck so that the spine is supported. And then I also like about 2 to 3 pillows underneath the knees so that the knees are supported, the hips are supported. A lot of people, I'm shocked that you can sleep with no pillows underneath your knees because it puts so much pressure onto your back and your hips. So, and onto your knees because we can hyperextend our knees. So those pillows underneath the knees can be really helpful. Also, making sure that your heels feel good the way that they're touching the bed because we can tend to have unstable ankles as well. So maybe if you need a little bit of support for those ankles, remove a pillow and see if that helps, right? If our ankles are dangling, then we might need to remove a pillow so that they can just lightly touch the bed. It's really up to you with what feels best. I even know that some people wrap their ankles or wear an ankle brace to bed. That would be a decision for you and your doctor, but our OT in some cases does find that to be helpful for some people. It really depends. And then for your arms, I know a lot of us just have our arms kind of like on the bed and that tips forward the rotator cuff and it only adds to the tension that we have in that upper cross area, in the neck and the shoulders. So what I really like to do, and I know this is a lot, so you don't have to do this part, but what I really like to do is actually place like a couch pillow about midway through on the forearm so that my elbow is touching the bed by my side, and this is kind of like an escalator going up, right? It's just like a nice neutral line. And then I wrap up a hand towel or like a washcloth to place underneath my palm. So I have a nice straight neutral wrist. It's not here, it's not here. And I have a supported curve of the palm. So everything's nice and neutral. And it's usually like raised to that level. I'll show you here in a picture in the corner. But that can really help to take off the tension from the jaw, from the neck, when you have a neutral wrist. So I like to go into that position if I were a back sleeper. And if I had a perfect world, that's what I would do. If you don't want to set all of that up, sure, maybe you do the 2 pillows with no washcloths. Maybe you remove the pillows and you just do what feels best for you and you put your hands onto your stomach. That's all okay. It's really up to what feels doable for you and what feels best for your body. And as we know, things can change. As we know, squishmallows can be great. So a lot of people use identical squishmallows to hold their arms. It's really up to your body, but those are my 2 favorite positions for sleep as a hypermobile person. I hope that that's been helpful for you. If you need additional help with this, we do have a posture and ergonomics class with our occupational therapist on Zoom every month in the program that I'll put below here in the description. And you can go on there and ask questions and really dig in deep to these kinds of positions. And as always, you are stronger than you may feel. and it is possible to feel better. I'll see you next time.